Okay, great. I think we can begin. Well, good morning, everyone from sunny Dubai. Welcome to our fourth webinar, using geofences to ensure your vehicles don't enter into no-go zones during the pandemic with Mixed Telematics. My name is Noel Fernandez, and I've been working with Mixed Telematics for close to 7 years now. And I work with the customer success team based in Dubai here. So just a bit of housekeeping. We'd like to ensure everyone will remain on mute during the webinar, and please keep any questions you may have until the end. So I would like to essentially take you through a few different methods to monitor your driver's movements and ensure they're always within the allowed regions and parts of the country or city. So this is to ensure they do not enter no-go zones and restricted zones during their journeys and trips. So it is important to know the locations of your drivers and your vehicles, of course. So this is in order to ensure the traceability is known if or when required in case of infection from dangerous areas or high-risk areas. However, hopefully, of course, none of our customers are ever faced with the situation with their fleet and drivers. So this is particularly hard with larger fleets of vehicles and drivers, and managing this on an individual level is extremely difficult. We need to allow technology to reduce that factor of managing a large fleet, and it's important to leverage bringing important alerts to your attention by allowing the system essentially to notify you of the highest priority incidents, that you or your fleet managers and supervisors need to be alerted of. So this is essentially one of the most important periods of time for our customers during this pandemic, and we're here for you to get the most help you can get from Mixed Telematics. So essentially, we'll take a three-phase approach to this webinar. So as a start, I will take you through setting up a geofence as a no-go zone on Mixed Fleet Manager. So I've essentially logged into Mixed Fleet Manager already, and I've come through to the live tracking page here. So I've selected my vehicle under the vehicle selection page here. So this is the current location of the vehicle, you could say. This is where it was last reported. So I'm going to zoom out and find the area essentially that I wanted to geofence as a no-go zone. So you'll see several no-go zones here already based on the map previously drawn. So essentially I do want to look for a particular location. So if there is a high-risk area, such as shopping malls or locations that you want to essentially geofence, you can click on the find a place option on the map here. It will go through, and based on your local country, it will return back an address of the location you searched. So this particular location we want to geofence is downtown Dubai. So on the right here, you have an option to create a location with map tools. So essentially there's several ways you can create this location, either by circular shape, rectangle, or polygon. So I find the polygon more useful because you can customize your shape with several points. So essentially going to geofence this downtown area of Dubai. And we'll just click on the first point to close that geofence. So on the left here, you'll have a pop-up with information on this geofence, which you can fill in. So you can create a name for the geofence, name it no-go zone downtown Dubai. Under the location type, you have several types of locations. If you want this as a no-go zone, however, you could set this up even for other types of locations. And this site I'll put based in the Dubai stuff. And then you can set up a color for the geofence, which you can recognize from the map. Okay, so I'll save my geofence here. Okay, so essentially you'll see geofence here located where you drew it and the name of the geofence listed. So the next step, essentially, I want to take you through is how do you set up an event to trigger if a driver drives through or enters this geofence. So under the monitor section as well, there is a section on the fleet admin called server-side events. So as a first type of event I want to set up and show you is an entry event into the no-go zone. So right here, you can add a server-side event. So I want to set up a no-go zone downtown Dubai. That's the name of the event. Record the event for assets, and you can set it up as a recurring event. So based on your current restrictions and timelines of certain places in your country, you can set up a date that you want to set as an expiry date, which can be then further extended if you require. If the government does extend those timelines. So I'll hit next. Under assets and drivers, I want to select, say, for example, my whole fleet in Dubai. So I'll select through that Dubai staff site. I'll go next and select what type of event it wants to be. So we do want a location entry event. So this does mean anytime a vehicle enters this location. So essentially there are several other types of events as well you can do. The vehicle is started moving in the location or stopped in the location. Several overspeeding events as well can be monitored in location and distance, duration, and any other events as well that are generated in that location. So we do want the location entry event, and we do want to then select our locations for that event. We want to search for our event we just created, no-go zone downtown Dubai, and select that. So you can simply record the event anytime the driver during the day enters the location, or you can even specify certain timing. So if you do have limited restrictions in certain areas of a couple of hours a day, you can set up those particular time frames as well. This purpose will use anytime. So I'll save this event. Let's try it again. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll show you a previous event I set up. So over here we do have a previous no-go zone event, which I did set up, which I'll show you next, essentially how to set up a notification next on how you would trigger these particular events. So as another addition, you can also set up events that can also alert the driver if they've entered a no-go zone by sounding an in-cab alert with a buzzer. So this requires an update on the unit of the vehicle with a new no-go zone event. So this would require a configuration update and then upload to the vehicle. So this essentially can be set up by our technical support team if you require, or facilitated by your customer success manager. So I'd highly suggest if you do want to get this set up so that drivers do get alerts that you do get in touch with us to get this set up. So next I'll show you is a method to set up notifications for these events. So if you're not monitoring this, obviously for a large fleet, you do want to get notifications set up so that any entry events that do get triggered are sent to you either by email or push notification to your mixed fleet mobile application. So I'll go down and set up an event for a notification for this event. So I'll name this no-go zone notification. So we do want to set up for any vehicles in your fleet. In a similar method, we will select the Dubai staff. And we want to set up an event for no-go zone, notification for the no-go zone event. So we'll go next. From here, you can set up your recipients. So again, you have your predefined list of contacts on your Mixed Fleet Manager account, and you can set through contact and set that up here. Now you do have an option to do SMS notifications based on your organizational setup that can be facilitated by your account manager. And also there are push notifications at the bottom here, which can be set up if you set up an account on Mixed Fleet Manager Mobile. You can also get a pop-up notification on your phone if you have the application installed. So up here, we'll set up a notification for the vehicle, the date and time of event, and the event description, and the location of the event. I'll save this notification. And you can see here, no-go zone event is being created. A notification for the event is being created. Okay, so now we'll essentially take you through a few ways on how you monitor these events when they do trigger and how to investigate them in further detail. So the next feature I want to show you is in InfoHub Streams. I'll click on this. Essentially, there's a way to set up a streamlined way to view these events as they come in on the screen, the InfoHub screen. So you can essentially set up several streams. So this is one here. You'll see of the entering no-go zone event. You see here, there's one previous event that was triggered on the 4th of May at this particular no-go zone, which was set up. So you see here that this has been actioned. You get further details of where it was, date and time of the event, and the particular location of which no-go zone this was. So you see this has been actioned, it's spoken to the driver on the reason why they entered this zone, and you can save that. There's another example here. We have a non-actioned event. So we can similarly view the details of this event here, and similarly this location here. So this can be then actioned as well, so that you can monitor these events and action them as well with the driver. Back to the stream. So that's essentially one way you can monitor the events. If you have a control room or central office that you want to monitor all of these events on, and a control dashboard, you can put this screen on there, and you will in real time see the events coming in to the stream. So the next section I want to take you through is how do you investigate on a trip-by-trip basis these events further in detail. So I'll go through on to historical tracking here. Go through and select my vehicle. Stuff. Select my time frame. I'll just reload this quickly. Seems to be a bit slow this morning. Okay, so I have a couple of test cases here that I'd like to show you of a trip that was made essentially by myself. So you see here the vehicle, total distance for this trip on this particular day on the 4th of May. And you see there are two distinct trips made here of going to a location and returning from a location. So if I expand on this trip for details, you'll see there's two events triggered here of leaving an isolation zone and entering also the no-go zone. So we'll display this on the map. Essentially, you see here as a trip start time essentially left my home, went on this particular trip. There was a event triggered here for leaving the isolation zone. So this is essentially when I exited this particular geofence at the start of my trip, and then a no-go zone that was placed here, and essentially over here you see when I did enter the no-go zone. So these are all obviously date stamped with the location there at the bottom. You see there's no-go zone MOE. This is would have been triggered on the info hub stream as well. And as the second part of my trip, I'll show you here the return journey. Essentially, when I made a trip back here, there was another no-go zone entered and an event triggered here. And then as well, set up another event of when I entered back into the isolation zone. So essentially that's a way to look into these events in more detail and how to investigate, which particular zone was triggered and location, and to further investigate why potentially these no-go zones were entered. So essentially, as the last part of the webinar, I'd like to look upon any historically triggered events and violations and driver movements. There are several reports that can be run to provide detail by time and several metrics that you can use to break down the visits of these restricted locations and no-go zones. So essentially proceed to run through several reports here that can be used to identify this. So we'll start through with a report called the drive-through report. So this gives you probably the most level of detail you would require to monitor any movements of drivers through locations or even particular addresses of where they were. So we'll go through under reports to movement reports here and the drive-through report. Click on that. Okay. So essentially we can either monitor this report on driver or asset. So we'll select asset. This way you can generate based on your fleet of vehicles, no matter what driver had used the vehicle. So we'll go through and select our test vehicle here. Hit next. Okay, so we want to select our location list for all of the no-go zones in this database. And just leave default showing columns. And so I want to look at the last 7 days of trips. So essentially here we can view the report or download it in PDF form. So once you hit run, you'll get a report in PDF form as well in this particular format. So here you'll see an example of the drive-through report, which details each particular zone, if any of the assets that you selected have entered this zone. So here's the first example is no-go zone Al-Wasl. It'll show you the average duration while the vehicle is in the zone, number of visits, which essentially means the entries into the zone, and number of assets here. You'll see the total number of visits as a summary for all locations, and the number of assets and number of locations that are monitored in this report. So you see here detail based on the arrival time, departure time into the this particular location. Similarly, here is another location. You'll see here the same information. And then another location you'll see, based on if you selected the whole side of your organization, you'll see several other vehicles if they entered this particular no-go zone. Similarly here as well. So essentially the next report I'll show you as an example is the daily movement report. So this can be based obviously on a daily basis. You can see here as the 4th of May as an example, my vehicle. It does show you the exact movements of the vehicle from the first trip start down to the ending time of that trip. So you'll see here, based on your country settings and your map settings as well, you'll be returned with the localized addresses for that country in your language. Obviously supported by here maps. If that is being provided on your mapping, you'll get the localized language. So you see here in Arabic, departed location, arrived location, and then also any particular locations you set up on your organization no-go zones will also be displayed here, and also the potential standing time in the locations and driving time within the locations as well, and the total distance covered, as well as your maximum speeds generated between those locations. So the next example of report I want to show you is a summary movement report. This is as it says, more summarized view of the no-go zones, as in this example. So you see the 3 zones monitored here. You see the number of visits and unique visits as well. In potentially, singular trip, it could be visited twice through entering the location, but it's within the same trip. So that's what unique trips designates. So you see the total time at location, the driving time within that location, distance covered, and your average speed as well. So again, one more report, which I definitely think we would find useful to monitor the drivers, is location visits by day of the week. So if you had particular days of the week where you had restrictive movement to certain locations, you can also monitor those particular days by selecting just either the weekends, if those are currently on lockdown, that drivers can't drive into particular locations. You can just monitor on your Fridays and Saturdays, or Saturdays and Sundays, for any movements in these no-go zones as well. So essentially that covers the last part of the webinar reporting of these events. So essentially I'd like to just summarize, what we have covered so far. So, we've so far covered setting up a geofence, a server-side event, and also explained notifications as a start to get real-time alerts sent to your inbox in case of any breach of restricted areas or entering dangerous zones by drivers. So this would be the first port of call for using geofences to ensure your vehicles don't enter into no-go zones during a pandemic. We then reviewed a real-time stream of these events being generated through the info hub, and being able to action these events as well, and then also a way to investigate their trips in more detail through the historical tracking feature. And then in the last part of the webinar, we generated reports to look at the historical data to view specific journeys and trips that violated restricted areas and no-go zones. So all in all, that covered how you would essentially monitor your no-go zone events and locations, how to actually manage those notifications in detail, and then through the reporting, how to measure these central alerts and view them on a historical basis. So obviously all the reports as well are, can be subscribed to, so that you don't have to go into manually run these reports. So essentially that covers all the aspects that we wanted to explain to you, how you would actually use geofences to ensure your vehicles don't enter these no-go zones during the pandemic. So I'd like to thank you for your attention, and also know that we will also be sending out a recording of this webinar. In case your colleagues have missed the webinar, you could also share it with them. And I would like to also open up the demonstration part of the webinar and open up to any questions from the attendees. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions you have.
Good morning, Neil. This is Abdul Qadir.
Hi, good morning.
My question is, Neil, if in case this location where we are, if we do not have access or if we do not have a map with such detail which you are showing, then is there any other way to implement this in this full details?
Sure. Yes, so essentially through the mapping available for your particular location. So I'll just go back to the map here to show you some options that you do have to set up geofences. So through the mapping options, there's several ways to essentially find a particular location. So there are ways on the right here, for example, I could search through, find a place based on GPS coordinates. So if you do know GPS coordinates of a particular location you want to geofence, you can enter those here. It'll take you down directly to that location, and you can create the geofence then after by drawing that. I mean, there are also several ways you can switch the mapping on Fleet Manager to view it on a satellite basis.
Sorry, Neil. Can we take the example of Baghdad, Iraq?
Okay. So let's see if I can find that on this map. So we search Baghdad, for example, here. So is there any further detail after this that you would like to search? If you switch to Street View here, you do see there are some details within Baghdad that you could search from on the map. Does this answer your question?
Yeah. So, but you can see that it's not that details what you are showing on, for example, on Dubai location. It's a bit brief.
Sure. Yeah, so it is very brief. Probably compared to Dubai, there is a lot more detail and mapping there in UAE. There are several. Every quarter there are updates. On certain countries on the detail of the mapping. So I would suggest you possibly get in touch with your customer success manager to find out, if your particular location would be getting further updates on this mapping.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't catch your name there, but thanks for your question.
It is the first one, Abdul Qadir.
Abdul, okay. Thank you, Abdul. Okay, if there are no further questions from anyone else.
No, can I just quickly ask, sorry, it's Jody here. When you say you can enter in the GPS coordinates, if I had a whole list of sites that I wanted to do, am I able to do an import or something like that, or do I have to search them individually to mark them?
Sure. There is a way. I would suggest that you do get in touch with technical support. There is a way to bulk import GPS coordinates. That can be done by our technical support team. Possibly in the most efficient manner. So I hope that answers your question, Jody.
Yeah, that's
Just on
great.
it, sorry, it's Marie from Perth. Jody, we can talk together and we can arrange that and we can organise an import for you.
Yep, I'm going to be talking to you, Marie. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Well, thanks, Jody and Marie. Great. Are there any other further questions? Great. I would like to thank everyone for their time and attention of the webinar. Please look forward to the recording of the webinar and also our next webinar announcement, which should be in your inboxes soon. So thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good day or a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you.